Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our episodes of Opinionated Lushes. Today is a little different. We're going to invite on a guest who actually our live stream. You guys remember our live stream? We donated a bunch of money. Well, not a bunch. Okay. It was, what was the total, Sonia?
It was 1,100 split.
That was pretty good for our first live stream, I think. I'm pretty proud of that. And so we donated to one of the charities that was Epilepsy South Central Ontario. So we have a guest on, Trevor. I'm going to pass it to you. You can introduce yourself and just explain what you do.
So hi, thank you each of you for the opportunity. Epilepsy never seems to get talked about enough. But my name is Trevor Gordon. I'm with the Canadian Epilepsy Alliance, which is the umbrella of all the epilepsy organizations across Canada. I also work with Epilepsy South Central Ontario, that covers South Central Ontario, which covers Hamilton, which is where the incident that we're here to talk about today happened.
And that's where we're from, actually. So to everyone there.
Together for this important topic.
Yes. Do you want to get right into what that incident was, since you brought it up?
Sure, I appreciate that. So Marcus Charles is a man who worked at a store. It's all in the media, so it's not a secret. He worked at Canadian Tire in Hamilton. Anyone watching this that wants to do their own research, I would encourage you all to Google Marcus Charles at your leisure. The only warning I would give your viewers is that you might come across a video that is very sad to watch. It's upsetting, but it's a man that basically, after his shift was done at Canadian Tire, he had a seizures, and his fellow colleagues or staff called the paramedics, as sometimes people do if they don't know what to do with someone having a seizure. And the paramedics came, and basically the paramedics actually ended up calling the police, and the police basically restrained him while he was having a seizure, and they tased him while he was having a seizure. The only thing I want to say loud and clear before we continue the conversation, anything that we say or I say during this is based on what we read in the media. We weren't there. We know what the witnesses saw, that we know what Marcus has shared with us, again, in those media reports. But the one thing I think we can all agree on is part of first aid training is not tasing someone.
I've taken first aid for 20 extra years of my life, and tasing someone has never been on the treatment plan.
Never.
I've been to first aid too, and there was never a taser there. I'm just saying.
Unless it's like an updated, I'll be honest, I'm like 3 years behind my first aid training. Maybe it's this year. I don't know, but it doesn't sound right.
No, it doesn't.
That's the thing. And I mean, the other thing I'll say too is that we're not, so basically we created a petition because there's an actual course that the Canadian Epilepsy Alliance put together that is provided to the police. It actually, one of the people involved in creating the course was a police officer who has epilepsy, who had seizures while at work. He was part of the panel to put this course together. It's actually sitting in their portal. The police across Canada have access to a particular portal for police training, but the only problem is that the course isn't mandatory. So we, as a Canadian Epilepsy Alliance, we don't want to pick on the police. We understand that sometimes, or a lot of times, the police have a hard job to do to create protection. But what we're asking of the police is to take a course that's already in their portal, and we want to make it more mandatory. So that's what the petition is that we're asking the public to sign, that we want to take a course that's already sitting in their portal.
Zero cost. Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. It's the bare minimum. Like, we're just asking for like the bare minimum here. And for everyone listening, there will be a link to the petition in the description of this episode, wherever you're listening from. So yeah, sign that, share that, because like the fact that we need a petition for the bare minimum, like that's not good. That's not a good sign in just from what I've seen, I guess. I mean, especially in Hamilton.
let me upset you even more, Jessica. The course is maybe 45 minutes to take.
45-minute free course. Like that's you, and they probably would get paid. Every thing I've had to do
on the clock
has been paid extra than my normal rate of pay, and that's usually for many government types jobs. So no, it's only 45 minutes of their life paid. It's bare minimum. It's already there. No extra work.
Well, for a second, we all went to school. We all had those courses where it was do the mandatory courses, and if you want some extra credit, or maybe you get that assignment that's at the start of the year, you have all year to work on it. But it's not mandatory. What you end up focusing on the mandatory things. You sometimes skip the extra credit or the not mandatory things. So I'll defend maybe the police, and maybe they get bombarded with all these mandatory courses, and they might forget about the not mandatory ones. So not that I'm defending it 100%, but maybe it's not in their focus. So that's why I'm saying let's make it mandatory, and to put the fire up them a little bit, Well,
I would even push back on that because the heads of the police, not the individual. Yeah, I'd give the benefit of the doubt to the individual officer. But in the news lately, police have just been getting a bad rap in general, across North America, that this would be such an easy win for all the chiefs of police just to be yeah, mandatory 45-minute course. Sure, why not? And not have to make us fight for it. It would just make them PR, from a PR standpoint. It wouldn't look just that better if they could just do the thing without having to be socially pressured into it.
We have just under 3,000 people that signed this petition, which we're happy about that number. But for a cross Canada petition, it's quite low, I think, in my humble opinion. I mean, I don't know what that magic number is, by the way, that would get us to have this petition taken serious. But I think it's above 3,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's not even an apartment building full of people. You know what I mean? As the percentage of people in Hamilton, just Hamilton alone, 3,000 is
nothing.
It's,
our population is 550,000 people in Hamilton.
Yeah,
I'm not good at math, but that's not.
That's a 0.2% of our population. Yeah, it's ridiculous.
Well, that's one reason we need to talk about it, because it's not just epilepsy and stuff like that, but the police have fumbled the ball in multiple instances involving disabled children and adults. And it's just okay, so we know that they're impaired in their education in this involving at least this group of individuals. Why are we not focusing on that? Why is that just ignored? And the police get sued or whatever, but nothing ever actually gets resolved. It just keeps happening. So.
Let me add another layer to this. He got charged. He was charged with 3 different cases of assault. So I know I keep adding little pieces to this.
No, but it's crazy.
3 different charges, assault charges. He has to go to court some point this month or maybe early next month. I mean, we hope that those charges are dropped. We hope
they should be. Oh my goodness, this is aggravating. So angry. So our listeners know I have a son. He's 12, and he's a big man. He is 12, and he is 5'9" now in height. So he's already kind of, if you don't know him, he's a bigger kid. So when he would he has different types of seizures that involve him sometimes still moving and still talking through them, and you might not recognize it. And so it can get scary if he comes out of it and he's melting down if you don't recognize that. He's still 12 years old and he's dealing with this stuff, but because he's a big kid, I get scared when I'm not around. Because everyone's just gonna look at this giant thing, what freaking out, I guess. So it's really scary to see stories like this and realize that those things just can happen, especially because it happened in my home. Here, I live here. I go to Canadian Tire.
The BNS device. I'm assuming you've all heard of the BNS device that some people living with epilepsy have embedded in them. If this gentleman had a VNS device in him and he was tased, that might have caused even a bigger issue, you know?
I know. And like
together right now, I apologize, but
no.
We have a Sunny Days camp. Epilepsy South Central Ontario has a Sunny Days camp. This is a separate issue, but it segues in the fact that we were bringing these children on a bus to go to Build-A-Bear at our local mall. Some of them, this is probably their first time on a bus. That alone is a trip in itself, right?
Yeah.
This bus driver was confused why we had these special purpose tickets, bus tickets, because they didn't see a disability. So, and I said to this bus driver, do you want these our children to have a seizure in front of you for you to believe that they have epilepsy? So I know I'm kind of going back and forth here, segueing, but this man here, they don't know he had epilepsy. People, if you watch the video, people were screaming, he has epilepsy, he's having a seizure. Like, just because someone is reacting doesn't necessarily mean he's trying to, I don't know. I
think like this reform policy for police is like a first step, but overall I think like epilepsy training in like epilepsy education as a whole, because like I know like as a parent of a child with epilepsy, I didn't even know that much about epilepsy until he got diagnosed. And then I was like, oh, you mean there's more than just the falling on the ground shaking seizures? What because that's only first aid we really learn is for tonic-clonic seizures. So when it comes to like other types of seizures, you have no idea what to do. It's like they're walking. I can't roll him into the emergency position when he's done. Like what, and then like people don't realize that. And so it's like someone's saying they're having a seizure and you don't recognize it as a seizure. It's hard to like, actually provide adequate care, I guess. It's just important, I think.
I'm already loving how this conversation's kind of going all over the place because now it's hearing about the just myths alone. Right?
Mm-hmm.
People still try to put things in people's mouths because they think you're going to swallow your tongue.
Which is not
true. Reports about someone being awarded a medal for trying to save someone. He was driving and he was having a seizure, but luckily the person was able to pull the car to a side and put something in the driver's mouth to prevent him from choking. What? Picked up by all these media reports, and then it creates this narrative that it's actually helpful to put something in someone's mouth to protect them from swallowing their tongue. I've literally talked to media, like anytime I do media report, like interviews, I literally email them talking points. And literally in one of my talking points, it's impossible to swallow your tongue, thinking that they're going to feel offended I'm giving them this obvious information. And they're like, oh, thanks for telling us that. We would have said that.
It's not obvious for some reason. It's been like debunked at least a decade.
Yes.
At least. And people are still like, you can't ever swallow your tongue unless you have some way different, weird, undiagnosed.
Unless the webbing under your tongue is like gone. And then
just like you can't say like never, but really the odds are probably never.
Probably. And that's a separate issue with your tongue.
You can choke for sure, and obviously it would be best to have them sitting upright or trying to make sure that air is they get air. Like no one's doubting that you might choke, but putting something in their mouth is not going to avoid them choking.
Putting something in their mouth might increase their chance of choking.
Just like jamming it down.
They're just putting that out there. There's so much misinformation when it comes to epilepsy that's out there that I found. I'm just gonna, I think Dawn and Sonia know where I'm gonna go with this rant. But when my son first got diagnosed, the first thing anyone ever said to me, people that had no experience with epilepsy, friends and family, everything, did you try CBD oil? And I was just like, we're working with our neurologist and it's been discussed, but based on his specific type of epilepsy, it's more likely to worsen his seizures. And they're just like, oh, I thought it worked for all of them.
Right.
As if it was this like miracle cure for seizures. And it's all based on that like one video that went viral of like a kid that had debilitating seizures that stopped with CBD oil. And it's just like, do you know how many types of epilepsy there are, Sonia?
I do not.
Oh my gosh. I read the epilepsy most common in youth. I can't remember the exact title of the book, but it went all over the most common, and my son's wasn't even in there. And there was like 30.
Yeah. Types at least. There's over 40 types. And Jessica, I wanted to commend you that you actually said, when you said tonic-clonic, you said it correctly. I know a lot of times people still say grand mal, and here's the thing. I'm in media and social media and website, and we're all not 90. We love the internet and the whole thing. But you know what I hate about the internet? That as much as we correct new information, the old information's still there.
Yes.
Right? So as much as we do everything to make sure that we have all the correct terminology, all the correct the old information sits on the internet forever. So that's the only thing I don't like about the internet, is that people still see the old information and still say grand mal seizures. And then you still have neurologists still telling people that grand mal is the correct term. And, I know we're going all over the place with topics, but it's just, myths, and it's just part of the frustration of my job every day.
I love my neurologist. She's so good, and she doesn't push things. The type of seizures my son has, he has eyelid myoclonia along with absences. So for him, he used to have 200 a day because he has Javon syndrome. He used to have hundreds a day. And then he started medication. It took a couple medications to find, because his type of epilepsy is very med resistant. So it actually took a couple before we even found one that didn't have too many side effects and actually put a stop to his seizures. Now he still has about 5 a day, but we're not adding more medication on that because it's super hard to get full control. And we are happy with the reduction we have. And our neurologist, she's very straightforward, doesn't push things. I love her. So get good doctors if you have epilepsy, because that's really important. I mean, if you're in Ontario, good luck.
Yeah,
we've been with her for a couple years, so we're stuck. But
we're on that wait list right now, is waiting for a neurologist. So my family's new to epilepsy. We just figured out Christmas break that my one child was just having constant seizures, and now we're waiting. We're in the beginning stages of finding a neurologist, getting a diagnosis, treatment plans. Still very new for us. So thankfully, I have Jessica. If I didn't have Jessica, I'd be like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I'm doing.
A few years.
Yeah.
Oh, Trevor, you might find this interesting. My family doctor, when my son started having eyelid flickers when he was 4, we took him, and she just said they were tics. And it took 2 years later, when he started having behavioral difficulties, that she gave him a referral to a pediatrician for ADHD. The pediatrician saw him one time, was like, we're going to get an EEG first. Sure enough, it was epilepsy. So yeah, getting a diagnosis for epilepsy. There's so much misinformation about what seizures are that our own family doctor didn't recognize it. So yeah.
And also just hearing these magical cures, every day when I go through our Facebook page and I have to erase comments from people saying, if you massage your temples, seizures will go away completely. Or if you, jump on one foot and you spin in a circle and you get a certain...
Say the alphabet backwards and
there'll be a cure and everything like that. I don't know. It's just frustrating. The one thing I'll say before I forget, though, is if anyone is watching this and you think you have epilepsy, or you have questions about epilepsy, or you have epilepsy, you contact the Canadian Epilepsy Alliance, and you can click on locate an agency. There's about 24, 25 epilepsy organizations across Canada. There's hopefully an epilepsy organization in your part of the province, your city. Epilepsy South Central Ontario obviously covers South Central Ontario, but there's 14 specifically in Ontario. So, and if you live in Canada, there's hopefully one in your area. If you live in the US, we can connect you to the one in the US. There's someone here that will listen, and there's programs and services. All agencies have different programs. A lot of programs now are being offered over Zoom. So even if you don't live in that area, you can take advantage of virtual programs now. So, take advantage of the programs that exist. That's why we do fundraising, to keep these programs, services free. So that's why we appreciate what your podcast, did for us, and it's because we want to keep these programs and services free for those that need it. So I'll put each of you on the spot. Are you taking advantage, as much as you guys are amazing and doing fundraising, are you taking advantage of the programs and services that the agency are offering?
My son has been in Sunny Days.
Great.
And my favorite was we got to go into the Jays care place at the Blue Jays game. Me and my son.
Maybe I met you there.
Maybe. I didn't have weird hair then. This was pre-COVID, so I didn't shave my head yet, So I probably looked a little normal. That is
one of my favorite activities, if you didn't notice this here. But
yeah, the Blue Jays. It's awesome. It was so much fun. And my son loved it because he normally I used to work for the Ticats, so he used to go to games, and he hated staying in the games. He would just kind of run in the back more often. So it was really nice to have all that space. They had extra activities when he got bored, watching the game, and they had hot dogs, which is his favorite food. So he was having a blast.
But as you know, what's good about Sunny Days Camp is a lot of times these children actually don't know what a seizure looks like.
Yes.
Sometimes they're actually seeing other children have a seizure, and they actually say, "Oh, okay," and they don't get as scared about having it themselves. Or they see how calm the staff is around having someone having a seizure, and they start to realize, you know what? Sometimes I was getting picked on for it being this and this and this. Oh, I'm going to go back and say it's not a big deal. Look, they start to feel a sense of empowerment, that they're not afraid that if they happen to have a seizure, the world.
Yeah, that's such a good point, because my son came back one day and he's like, so and so had a seizure, and it was just oh, how was that? And he's like, it was weird, but it's just it's he's never seen it before. Of course it was weird, but it wasn't he wasn't shocked by it, or I remember the first time he had a febrile seizure when he was a toddler. And, I panicked. I'm not going to lie. I didn't know. I'd never seen a seizure before. I didn't know what was going on. And so, it's such a good, it's good for the kids. And he got to talk with other kids that had seizures. He didn't know anyone at his school that was took meds every day. He didn't really know, especially at his young age, he didn't know anyone that was doing that. And for him, he's never going to drive. That's because he will never regain control long enough based on, how the trajectory of the type of seizures he has. And so that's a hard thing to tell a 10-year-old.
Yeah.
It just he doesn't have lower cognitive ability or anything. So he's fully able to recognize oh, now he makes jokes about it, because we're always you can be whatever you want. And he's not if it requires a license. And then, we move on. But it's it's good for the kids to connect with others that are going through the same issues, I guess.
Yeah, I think that's perfect, because we're having a struggle right now where my child is feeling isolated, where she's starting to be why am I so different? So these camps are great. We aren't connected yet. We're still on the way. But that's for a child, because I'm seeing it the other way. I'm seeing how it's making her more depressed, so alone. And it's great that these kids have other people to connect with that are going through the same thing. So you don't feel like a weirdo or something's wrong with you. And it's not, you're just built different. And it's great when other kids get to see other kids being
kids will themselves. Find a reason to make fun of you no matter what. It right, sucks when it's something you can't control, it's that's when it sucks. Yeah.
No,
it's good as well about the camp that it's a lot of camps are generally designed for just one person or one kid, or especially a camp that's decided for a condition. But with Sunny Days, we invite the whole family. So if you have a brother or a sister or a cousin, look, this is a Sunny Days epilepsy camp, but we're not going to split the kids up if you're a brother and sister, or two sisters or two brothers, and we let them both come. And then if anything, they learn again about epilepsy, and then they're put in a situation where it's a little more matter of fact. You never get used to seeing someone. It's still a bit of a sad situation, but I've seen thousands of seizures working at an epilepsy organization. You never get 100% desensitized to it, but you become more of a professional of how to handle it. I don't freak out. I don't oh my God, but it's still not something 100% like seeing, of course, but you start to realize that I learned in this job, I don't have epilepsy myself, but when I've met clients, I've learned that people with epilepsy are the strongest people I've ever met in my life. Like when I meet people that have seizures in front of me and they come to and they look at me and they're like, Trevor, are you okay? I'm like, wait, you're asking me if I'm okay? Like, you're the one that's on the ground and I was worried about you hitting the chair. Oh, I'm fine. I had this yesterday. I'm okay. You okay? Like, you seem shaken up, Trevor. I'm like, oh, I'm fine. You start to realize, I'm like, wow, I bruised my knee on the couch yesterday, and I'm depressed for the rest of the day. Whereas someone that has seizures, they're the strongest people I've ever met. Like, it just really, I don't know. I'm babbling. I apologize. I'm just
great.
saying that, like, it's why I get so upset when people dismiss people living with epilepsy, because they're the strongest people I'm not just saying that. They deal with a lot more, and a lot of people deal with it with humor. They just get through their day, and this is part of their life, you know?
We always say, like, if you can't, cry about it, laugh, or however that saying goes.
That was really good. That was really good.
Cry.
Thank you. Oh yeah, that's how it goes down. Thank you for correcting that, because I was like, I was close. I was on the right ballpark, but yeah,
you were there. You were just right there.
We make jokes all the time. My son jokes about his epilepsy all the time. I personally didn't realize how common epilepsy is because we don't talk about it. So I thought it was like one of those things, like very, very few, but it's like some of the estimates are like really like, I can't remember, it was the one in, I have the foam finger that says it from you guys.
1 in 100.
Yeah, 1 in 100 has like seizures, some like epilepsy and stuff. And that's like crazy. That's like I know that many people. Like I have 400 people on my Facebook. I only can name one that I know that is epileptic. Who are the other 3?
Yeah.
It's the third most common neurological condition. And let me just add to the frustration, it's not government funded.
Yes.
The third most common neurological condition, and it's not government funded. Just wrap your head around that,
Yeah.
1 in 100 Canadians have epilepsy. I'm always trying to get as many TV appearances to talk about it. I've had media producers tell me the reason why epilepsy doesn't get talked about enough, it's not glamorous enough. It's
glamorous.
It's not big, I don't want to dismiss other conditions or other disabilities. They're all important. But being told that epilepsy is not as important as others, I can't put words to that,
I don't even know like how that even just the idea of like, well, it has to be like good for the media, to talk about, guys. We need
Gwyneth Paltrow on this.
Oh my God, Gwyneth Paltrow have a seizure for epilepsy awareness.
Yeah. We've been told to act out seizures, and we've always said no.
No,
we're not going to fake a seizure for you or for your enjoyment. You know what I mean? Like,
I would just disassociate for like a minute and be like, "Oh, there you go."
Like, how do you come back from that?
Like, there you go. Like, what my son would talk through his. Like, you can't just be like, "Oh, that's," that goes back to like people recognizing only one type of seizure. Like, sometimes I'm talking to someone and it's too complicated to explain tonic-clonic, so I'll literally just dumb it down and say grand mal, because it's like I don't want to have to like explain the vernacular to them. Because it gets complicated. And then so it's just like, I'm talking about seizures, a grand mal. Okay, fine, throw away. If I'm talking to like these guys where they'll let me explain it properly.
You just do it anyway. You're like,
yeah, well, it's not my fault you guys let me talk so much. I don't know what to tell you.
We also let people know that epilepsy is not contagious. Like, if you hug someone with epilepsy, you're not going to get a seizure. You're not going to have epilepsy from hugging someone. Like,
do people think it's contagious? Like, I've never heard of it.
Just like, Google the myths, and it'll you or make you laugh, or all the above. I don't know, but it's just these myths are just quite ridiculous and frustrating, and it's hard enough to get the conversation of epilepsy talked about as it is, but then to have all these different definitions about what epilepsy is, or having all these myths and whatever, it's frustrating, you know.
And the diagnosis was like real. It took like 2 years, not including the 2 years we were ignored, and it was called tics. So 4 years total, but 2 years from being told to get an EEG to when we got our actual diagnosis. And part of that was getting an EEG, which we had to wait a few weeks for. We got that. That confirmed he was having seizures. Then they were like, okay, now we're going to do a video EEG for 6 hours to determine what kind of epilepsy. We didn't get that for 8 months. And then he went for an MRI to confirm his diagnosis, which was like another year. And then finally we got his and genetic testing. And we did genetic testing, which we found out he also have a Fragile X premutation. So, and we found out that I also have that. So genetic testing, if you have epilepsy, is also good because you never know what you'll find.
And we found that like the emergency rooms don't even help you.
Oh, not for epilepsy. No.
Yeah, no, it's like because that's how we went, right? And they're like, no, there's nothing we can do for you. Just take care of her. I was like, okay, like, can't you just see if there's something else going on with her brain? They're like, no, it looks like she's having seizures. Take her home. Follow up with a neurologist. That's it. That was like, they need more support in emergency rooms too. Like, I felt so like helpless.
This is part of even what all the agencies are doing in the sense of our budget ask that we're asking the government. The reason why epilepsy organizations are asking for money from the government for the budget is to actually create education to prevent the emergency room being full of people that just had a seizure.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The emergency room shouldn't be full of people that are there that had a seizure. People should not be calling 911 for every seizure. I mean, of course, when you have a seizure, for the people watching, if you want some, if someone's having a seizure, you get the stopwatch out, you get your phone out, and you time it. If it's lasting above 5 minutes, okay, let's call 911 at that point. Or of course, if you don't know the situation, if you don't know the person, maybe I understand there are times where you might call 911 in those cases, but 90%, 95% of the time, if it's below 5 minutes, it's gonna ride out on its own. You don't need to call 911 and fill up emergencies rooms. So when we're saying to the government, give us X amount of dollars, and we've been asking for $300 million, just to be clear.
That's nothing in the government budget. Right. Just for people that don't know.
Exactly. We're asking not for a lot here. And if anything, that the argument is it will actually save taxpayers money because the emergency room won't be full with tons of unneeded situations, right?
And people will look for neurologists faster if they're like, oh, this is I'm seeing this like seizure, instead of like spending 20 hours at the emerge and not being able to get anything done. Like maybe like because all these people will be going for neurologists will start actually taking patients, because where the fuck are you guys?
Where are you?
Where are you?
Come out from under your rocks. I think my province has 2.
Yeah. yeah. Sonia's from Hamilton, but she does not live here currently. She's currently in New Brunswick. So
yeah, there's an epilepsy agency, the Epilepsy Maritimes.
Yeah, that's in Halifax. That's 6 hours for me.
6 hours.
Yeah.
But just to be clear, the founder of Purple Day, Cassidy Megan, grew up in the Maritimes area, and she's there. So if anything, I'd love to connect you guys together. She's a great energy, a great person, and she created Purple Day at 8 years old, and she's 24 now, but she created a day called Purple Day that started locally, and it's a day that's celebrated all over the world. So
that's awesome.
And that's Cassidy Megan. She lives in the Maritimes area. So, and which leads to my next point. March is Epilepsy Awareness Month in Canada, and then in the US, Epilepsy Awareness Month is in November. But March 26th is Purple Day all over the world. So it's one day where you see landmarks lit all over, whether it be the CN Tower, whether it be the famous Hamilton sign.
Yeah. We've taken pictures there before, I think. I
Right.
took pictures there.
So we want to see as many things lit purple as possible on Purple Day. That's for sure.
Yeah, no, that's awesome. I mean, my room is purple, so I'm already halfway there.
I'm new to the podcast. Does Dawn talk at all?
Oh, she does. We joke
Dawn
all the time.
Look at me all of a sudden. This is my first episode of this podcast, and already I'm feeling like part of the crew here. Why isn't Dawn talking here?
Yeah, Dawn Marie.
Okay,
yeah.
Dawn doesn't have a kid with seizures. So I guess that's the only reason.
Yeah, like I can't
You can't relate yet.
No, but I mean, put me on the spot. Ask me questions. I mean,
I'm not actually really that good at talking. Like I am, like when I'm on the spot, like I freeze up. No, it's okay. It's okay. That's actually the joke on our podcast is that these two up here like to talk a lot, and I'll be like, and I'll like throw in a couple of quips, like, but I'm just like,
Am I the first guest to like try to put you into it, or?
Yeah, actually.
No, that was perfect though to mention that.
I didn't know anything about epilepsy prior to getting the job. I don't have epilepsy. No one in my family has epilepsy. So it was like a crash course. And I've been with the organization 7+ years and I'm still learning. So I mean,
like,
just for you, Dawn, what do you,
okay, I actually do have a question. So my grandmother on my mom's side and my mom both had epilepsy. Late diagnosed, like 40s, 50-year-olds. So I want to know, is it genetic? Because that could be a possibility for me, like the females in my family.
That's see, the one question you asked me, it puts me on the spot. I mean, that's
that's what you get for calling me out.
I get it. Have we heard stories where a brother and sister might have it? Yes, it's been. So can it be hereditary? We've seen issues like situations like that. Yeah. But I don't know what the stats are on that. But I for sure, have we seen it run in the family? Yes, for sure. We've seen that, right? Yeah. But I don't know the scientific answer to that. I would direct that to a neurologist or a doctor.
You gotta get one of those. Go on the wait list while you can.
Yeah. You can. Like, in the next 10 years, I might have one. So can you just put me on now? You know?
Yeah.
But the short answer is we've seen it. But I don't know what the stats are of that. I think, the short answer is anyone that has a brain can have epilepsy, right? Yeah. And just because you have a seizure once or twice doesn't necessarily mean it's epilepsy, right?
Yeah.
But the answer is have family members, a brother, sister, a mother, daughter, like you've seen these things. But the stats on that, I wouldn't have that. Unfortunately. So way to put me on the spot. Well done.
I have a question. What's your do you talk with people about like when you're educating them and all this stuff about SUDEP?
Yes, so that is what we call the elephant in the room, right? Okay. So I think SUDEP is something that we need to talk about more, and I feel that could be its own segment at a time where I would love to bring my colleague from Epilepsy South Central Ontario, Carly, who you know, obviously. Carly would love to sit here and talk about that. So I would love in a future podcast to just talk about SUDEP because people are scared to talk about that because, yes, there is a risk of dying in your sleep from having a seizure. So we need to talk about that more. And I feel neurologists don't talk about SUDEP enough. I don't think sometimes even epilepsy organizations.
That's why I was asking. Cause I was like, we went this long and it's not been brought up. So I was wondering if it was something like the organization did talk about.
No, we talk about it. We talk about it and there's obviously a SUDEP action day that just passed October, I think. I don't have the date in front of me, but no, I for sure, Josh and Carly, who run our support programs at Epilepsy South Central and organizations across Canada, SUDEP gets talked about.
That's good.
So it is the line is that it is the elephant in the room, that it doesn't get talked about enough. But we've done podcasts when COVID first started, when we were working from home. Our past CEO, Cynthia Milburn, who's also the president of the Canadian Epilepsy Alliance, she did a web series called Conversations With that you can find on Epilepsy South Central's website. I can provide you guys the link that you could post.
Yeah, please.
We did an interview with Dr. Elizabeth Donner, who is specifically one of her things that she talks about a lot is SUDEP. So that would be an interesting podcast that you guys might want to share.
Definitely.
Yeah.
Well, like another point for my neurologist, which also kind of took me aback, was like every appointment, she always reminds us of SUDEP. And she's even like talked with our son about it. So like he doesn't have anxiety about it. It's more just like a part of his diagnosis. I mean, he's 12 and he's kind of been dealing with it since he was like 8, seizures since before that. But so it's like, you know, she brings it up every time just to kind of like reinforce that, because like people forget. And like I'm part of like epilepsy Facebook groups. So like I've seen like people have to make those posts, you know, those really sad posts, but it's like a real part of epilepsy that so many people don't even realize, you know. So.
I appreciate this, and I kind of like this sort of conversation that is kind of going all over. But at the end of the day, it's just the awareness. Like it's just getting more people to talk about these things as a matter of fact. You know what I mean? Like it's frustrating that some of these things are being told to people and they're hearing it for the first time. You know, that's why we created Epilepsy Ontario, which is the umbrella of all the Ontario agencies. They created something called Epilepsy Shop, which is a shop for clothing, because the reason why that started is that we found like when you would Google epilepsy merchandise or merch, a lot of times when people would buy these shirts, it was going to these people that had nothing to do with epilepsy. The money wasn't actually going to continue to keep programs and services free. So Epilepsy Ontario created a store where 100% of the proceeds go to the epilepsy organizations themselves. And then as much as purple is associated with epilepsy, you can buy other colors because not everyone likes purple.
I like purple.
I love purple, but some people want to still sport.
It's trash.
Here.
Oh no!
We can kick Sonia out, right?
Yeah. No, Trevor's on, Sonia's out. That's just how.
Right.
Now Don will be forced to talk.
Yeah.
So if anyone wants to buy merchandise, you go to epilepsyshop.org. And there's tons of merchandise that isn't just purple, and it's different messaging, whether it be I'm a purple warrior, or I love somebody with epilepsy, or you know what, those days where you're frustrated, screw epilepsy, you know? And what we purposely came out with shirts that kind of cater to all types of people. Some people feel the screw epilepsy might be too aggressive for their tastes, right? Or some other people say, you know what? No, some days I feel like saying screw epilepsy, right? But other people say, you know what? No, I feel I'm a purple warrior and I'm more empowered with epilepsy. So we have shirts for that too. Or I don't have epilepsy, but I love somebody with epilepsy. So there's all types of shirts for that. But to know that 100% of those proceeds from buying a shirt actually goes to epilepsy organizations to keep these programs free, like, you know, or low cost, like Sunny Days.
Yeah,
and there'll be a link.
Oh yeah, just gonna say,
and you go. I did the last link.
We will put the link in the descriptions of wherever you're listening this to, and all of our social medias, to find information on education and the petition and the story behind the petition and this merch store to help raise money for epilepsy supports.
And whether we do it now, or I could put you on the spot to invite me back down the road, or invite
Carly.
No, we'll definitely.
We could do a contest. And I don't know what this contest is. I'll put it on you guys. But give a free shirt to somebody if they, you know, answered a skill testing question. But maybe we could say that for a future, so that
sounds like fun.
Okay, you hear that? So the next future episode, when we have Trevor back on, there'll be a giveaway. So that's like preemptive. So you better be listening to this, because part of the giveaway, pick a number, Sonia.
17.
Okay, 17 is going to be involved in the answer. So hopefully you listen to this episode too. See how sneaky that was? Now they'll have to go back and listen to this and listen to the other one.
It was to force myself to come back.
You're like, hey, I'm coming back.
I would love to like literally talk about SUDEP, because I find it so hard to like explain it to people and like have people really understand it, because most people have never even heard of it. I'm sure most people are like, what's SUDEP? Like, they're like, okay, they die in their sleep. Like, how does that spell SUDEP? It's like sudden unexpected death, See, I don't remember what it was. But yeah. So like I was already being like, yeah, no, definitely want to do this again.
But what I'll do is I'll bring Carly with me so that she can handle the technical part of things and talk more about the theory and all that. And I can sort of provide the media talking points of that. But Carly, who runs our youth empowerment program and does a lot of our services with Epilepsy South Central Ontario, I would love to have her come on and talk about the services side of things and about all the different groups. And, she can dive into even the Sunny Days camp because we have one in Kitchener. We have one in Mississauga. So I love to... Carly, we'll watch this after. I'm putting Carly on the spot here.
Now you're volunteering other people
Carly,
to join.
we want you to come on.
But I know Carly loved you guys, and she's the one that talked to me about this, and was excited and very appreciative of the fundraising efforts that you guys did, and we appreciate that.
We had no idea how people were gonna take it because we get like our podcast is 18 plus, so it's, and this is how it goes. Although sometimes we're a little bit more explicit, but it's like, so we were like, oh no, should we like let them know we're doing this? What if they like don't like us and they're like, stop, don't say anything. Keep us out of your mouth.
If anything, we wanted to feel like we wanted to do more. We have always appreciated when the public does their own fundraisers. We do our own, but it's always great to have the public, do their own, and we act like an assistant to you guys. You tell us what you need. Can we get you some purple wrist bracelets or face masks, or hopefully we won't have to think about face masks anymore, but like just like different things to like, Epilepsy Awareness Month is coming up. So Carly and our staff, we're going to be putting together like baskets for different schools, and we're going to do contests and, things like that of who's going to be the most aware and different things to create awareness, right?
Well, this is a little ahead, but we are going to be doing another Christmas live stream fundraiser next December because it's annual. So we will definitely the South Central Ontario is always my charity pick. So I already know you guys are going to be one of the charities. So
I would love to maybe like do that Canadian, maybe like do it more, like expand it.
Instead of South Central, like do Canadian.
Maybe, we'll do both. Maybe I'll do Maritimes. You do.
Yeah, exactly. There we go.
Yeah. Just because like education is so important. Like, so I always thought you have to be born with seizures. Like that's how your brain works. You're born with it. And I recently learned that it doesn't matter your gender, your race, anything, your age, you can start having seizures, and you don't need a trigger. It can just start happening. So I think that's something a lot of people should be aware of, because so mental health is more my knowledge. And I thought my child was, because she's struggling with her mental health, I thought she was just disassociating. Her brain was having too much going on, too much depression, too much anxiety, and she would just disassociate. And then we figured out it just changed. Everything changed about it. And thank you to Jessica, her education. She's like, these are probably seizures. And then now we're trying to get that figured out. But I would not know if it was not for Jessica and me needing to do my own education. So I think the awareness is so important, because I was oblivious and now this is my life. So, well, it's my daughter's life. It's not mine.
You're the caretaker.
Yes. And it's so important. It's not out there at all.
Yes.
Yeah. More conversations need to happen. That's the one thing I've learned over the years. And also, again, just trying to get the correct information, and it scares me to know that I always think if I had epilepsy and I was told by a neurologist, you have been diagnosed with epilepsy, now go out into the world. And then you go on, we all do it, even though we shouldn't. We go onto Google or Google MD, right? And then we start Googling things, right? And then we
Wikipedia,
exactly. And then we read 100 different definitions of what epilepsy is, or reading different this, or even just the wrong terminology. Like some people still call seizures fits. And like different countries have different this and that. And also the debate on saying I'm a person with epilepsy or saying you're epileptic. like everybody has different terminology. Just trying to get the bigger thing is just creating conversation. And I think that you hit it on the nail on the head. Sometimes people with epilepsy might have some depression. So then they don't necessarily want to talk about it. And that's frustrating when we're trying to get 1 in 100 Canadians have epilepsy. Not many people talk about it. That's a problem, right? So you need to be not afraid to say, I have epilepsy. And, let's have conversations about it.
Yeah. So we're coming up on the hour. This was like a great conversation. So to all of our listeners, note we are going to be having more conversations like this because this is educational. I know everything, but and that maybe not everyone else does.
Yeah.
I'm kidding. I'm
and
really
don't
bad
be
with
a Dawn and actually talk.
Yeah. Dawn, next time you have to come with a list of prepared questions.
Okay, I'll do that.
It's homework. It's homework.
Even though this is my first episode, what I like about Dawn out of everyone is that Dawn asks the question that, like, she doesn't talk a lot, but when she does, she like karate chops or like elbows to me in the corner, asks me the one question that I stutter on.
Dawn, you're Silent Bob.
I'm Silent Bob.
You only talk when it's important.
But no, it was well done. You put me on the spot, but now I'll be ready for the next time. But I appreciate it. And I'm gonna bring Carly with me that will answer the one thing that I didn't know or I wasn't ready for. But I appreciate the conversation. That's the bigger.
Don't worry, I'll stun her too. I'll figure something else. It's a challenge.
Completely off the wall. Yeah.
So again, we're just wanting as many Canadians or even anyone listening, it doesn't matter if you live in Canada or not, this is not an isolated incident. It happened in Hamilton, Ontario, but it's been happening in places all over Canada. It's been happening in the US. We need to stop these issues happening. We want to take a course that is sitting in their portal, in the police portal. We want to take this course that's not mandatory. We want to make it mandatory. Right now, we don't even have 3,000 signatures. We want to get 10,000 or more signatures. So if each of you here can sign it, if everyone listening can sign it, and then tell your friends and family to sign it. Marcus himself has signed it, so he's endorsed this. He's appreciative of anyone that can sign this. Let me remind you, he got charged with assault for having a seizure. He got charged with 3 counts of assault for having a seizure. He was tased. Please Google Marcus Charles. If you want, I'm warning you now, the video is available to watch. It will upset you. But if that's what it takes to get you to sign this signature, to sign this petition, then please watch the video. Because it
takes like 30 seconds. It's a couple clicks. Like, come on. If you listen to it this whole hour, you owe us 30 more seconds, I think.
Yeah.
Like the link is in the you don't even have to search it. The link's going to be right in the description. Right in the description. So you better be clicking it now.
And then the last thing I'll say is if you have questions about epilepsy, if you yourself have epilepsy and you are looking for support or programs, the best thing to do is go to CanadianEpilepsyAlliance.org and click on locate an agency. You can literally see the agency in your province, in your city, and then don't be afraid to call or email. There are agencies out there that are available to help, whether you be in Hamilton with Epilepsy South Central Ontario or any agency across Canada. Multiple programs and services are available at your disposal. Don't be afraid to make a call or email. That's why we appreciate Jessica and everyone, Dawn, everyone here. That's the fundraising. Yeah. And even if you can't fundraise, even just create the conversation. That's the biggest thing. As much as we appreciate the fundraising, even if you just have conversations about epilepsy, that's what helps create awareness.
Yes. Well, we really appreciate you, Trevor, for coming on. Dawn, shut up.
Such a challenge.
So much, Dawn.
You kept over talking me. You didn't let me say anything during this whole podcast. But no, I appreciate the opportunity. I'm being funny, but the serious thought is I really appreciate this. It frustrates me that we can't talk about epilepsy enough. So the fact that you let me babble for this long, I appreciate it. Thank you.
No, thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on here.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, did you want to do closing remarks? Does anyone need closing remarks? Are we good? I think we said everything.
Yeah, we
good
yeah,
night. Thank you.
Yeah.
Good
Say
night.
shout out
Bye.
to your hair and shout out to your headphones. I like that.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I want to see that through the whole podcast. Like,
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Night.